So hello everyone. For those that don't know me, I am Kerrian Tatchley, so I'm one of the senior managers in the BIAZA team, and I am responsible for our Conservation Education Committee and our Research Committee, amongst lots of other things. I've got probably one of the drier bits of the conference today, so I will be fairly speedy in my talk. This is the bit where we kind of give the general update on what BIAZA has been up to and a little bit of an introduction, because we always have a few new faces in our audience at these conferences. So it's always good to kind of give a little bit of an overview of what BIAZA is and does, because there's always some that are slightly less familiar, and give some ideas of ways that you can get involved a bit more in what BIAZA does. But I will go fairly quickly, because after this you will get the chance to actually talk, and I know that our educators like talking, so we've got our discussion space just after I finish up here, looking kind of at what the past year or two has been like, and then looking forward to the future and what we can do collectively as a community, and I'm sure we're all super keen to get on to that bit. So just to give you a bit of an overview in terms of who is BIAZA. So there's almost 3 parts to BIAZA. This is part 1, and it is the office staff. We're actually quite a small team, and there isn't that many of us. So we've got our new CEO, Joe Judge, and then there's 2 senior managers, and then a couple of other people, including the lovely Alex, who is here with us in the conference today and has been sending out the emails, giving you links and things like that, but who normally is our membership officer, looking after all of our members. The second part of BIAZA is the committees. So because we're such a small office and we do huge amounts of things, it's obviously not all done by the people in the staff. It is done primarily by volunteers from across the membership, like yourselves, who sit on our committees and on our working groups. There's a huge structure underneath it all. So we have our council, our board of trustees at the top, of which David Field is one, and has always been very supportive and very integral to the work of BIAZA. And then we've got our kind of key mission areas, and also all of the supporting areas. So our mission enabling committee there covers all of the kind of business operations side, the things that are needed to make our zoos be able to fulfill their missions and their visions. And obviously the Conservation Education Committee is the big one for this conference here, and you hopefully will learn a little bit more about how that works when you go to your regional meetings tomorrow and get to meet your local regional coordinator if you don't already know them, and kind of find out a little bit more about how the regional setup for the Conservation Education Committee works, because that's actually fairly unique to that committee. None of the other committees have those local networks, so it's a really lovely part of what the Conservation Education Committee does. And thirdly, in the bit that quite often people forget, is of course the members are BIAZA. So every single one of you that works for one of our members is a part of BIAZA. You are all us, if that makes sense. So we now have 124 full and provisional members. So that's the zoo license holding members, our zoos and our aquariums. And you can see the regions split out of those. So BIAZA works across the whole of the UK and Ireland. And it's very important that we don't forget our additional territories. So the Isle of Man, Jersey and Gibraltar. So quite a big, wide area. There's quite a lot of different kind of governments and different structures to work through across those areas, but obviously an awful lot of core features. And then we have a whole load of additional membership categories as well. So some of those, for example, are private holders of animals that contribute to conservation programs and are accredited members. We also have our educational members, so our colleges and universities and other educational collections that may or may not have animals. So a wide kind of range of additional members, and that does include our corporates, including Lysits, who I will flag up now because they have sponsored this conference and given us some money to support the running of it, so thank you very much to them. And these are some statistics that I'm sure many of you will have seen lots of times. We talked about them a lot during our kind of lobbying and communications work during COVID. So these are the kind of big numbers of things that our members collectively achieve. So 35 million visitors, which is a huge chunk of the population. So it puts us in a really unique position to be engaging with a wide range of people across the UK and Ireland. We obviously support lots of field conservation projects, lots of research projects, the kind of money that we're donating to field conservation, and importantly, the education work that goes on. So we focused on the formal education here, but we do also collect statistics on the informal education too. But this data is not from last year. It's from a little while ago now, because this is a normal year. This is some of the data from a COVID year, so it's quite different, and I'm sure some of you could probably have guessed what some of that looks like. So across the period of March 2020 through to April 2021, so there's 387 days there, across the full BIAZA membership. We were open for just 38 days, and actually everyone was closed, apart from including Gibraltar and some of those slightly more offshooting areas who had quite different rules because they were on islands. They were fully closed for 207 days. And that had a massive impact on the kind of core mission areas. And as you will not be surprised to learn, education was the hardest impacted of those. So we saw education spending decrease by 80%, and education sessions, as on-site sessions in particular, decrease by 84%. Now, what we haven't really been able to do particularly is capture all of the data about some of this online learning that you guys have been thinking about. So that's a project for us going forwards, is how do we collect the data that shows actually, despite these impacts, just how much education activity was going on across our members. And if anyone's got some good ideas for that, then obviously do get in touch or raise it in your discussion groups shortly. A quick kind of update in terms of what BIAZA has been doing over the past year or two. So we, like pretty much everyone, went through some pretty dramatic changes through the pandemic, and we stopped pretty much all of our normal work. Many of our committees had to stop their work, partly because lots of them, there's people on them were furloughed, so they weren't really able to contribute at that time. And we had to fully kind of realign ourselves with focusing on the pandemic and providing support to our members through that pandemic. A huge part of that was lobbying governments, and I'm sure you'll have all seen lots of that activity across social media and across our member updates. So a big part of what we were doing was working across all of the different governments, so the UK, Westminster, and the devolved governments, and then the Irish government as well, to push for funding with varying levels of success. And although the zoo support fund at the Westminster level wasn't maybe as accessible to all members as we might have hoped for, it was the kind of biggest single pot of money ever made available to zoos in the UK. So it was pretty exciting from that point of view. And as David mentioned, there was a more kind of successful funding that happened in Scotland and in Ireland as well. Actually, all BIAZA members did get some funding in Ireland. So that was also a big success. We did a lot of pushing for reopening. Some of you will have seen the flurry of kind of updates that went on around being potentially about to be reopened and then being closed, and then pushing back to get that turned back into being a reopening in England in 4 days, I think it was. And that was very much due to our lobbying efforts and the collective efforts of our members through the Your Zoos Need You campaign. Lots and lots of talking to MPs and ministers, and including the Prime Minister, and building actually relationships across governments that are much stronger than we've had before. So that's something really exciting for us to work on going forwards, and being able to start talking to them about things beyond just the pandemic. And our all-party parliamentary group in Westminster was very successful in garnering kind of cross-party support for zoos and aquariums. We had lots of good, very well-attended debates in Westminster. And we also established a cross-party group in Wales during the pandemic as well. So that's had its first few meetings as well, and secured a visit from the relevant minister to Welsh Mountain Zoo. There was lots of work on press and social media. I have done far more live TV interviews than I ever expected to be doing. It was definitely a bit of a baptism of fire. So lots of activities on that front, and lots and lots of updates to members, which hopefully those of you that got them will have found useful. So during the pandemic, we were sending out daily updates, and that has since evolved to become our BIAZA bite-size e-newsletter, So that's now a weekly newsletter. It's fairly short, so hopefully it doesn't take up too much time to read, but it gives a really quick kind of snapshot of what BIAZA has been doing, what's coming up in terms of events, both our own and also sharing events relevant to the sector from across our members as well. And that's open to all staff of BIAZA Collections. So if anyone would like to receive that newsletter and doesn't, then please do just email into the BIAZA office and we can make sure you get added onto the list. And we've also now recently developed our blogs. So I'll chuck a link in to the chat in a little bit to the blogs, but that they are, there's been quite a few, for example, at the moment on COP26 and perspectives from different collections that were involved in that. So I know we were talking about that in some of the free time yesterday, so they might be quite useful. There hasn't been a huge amount of kind of conservation education themed blogs at the moment, so anyone would like to put any forwards, then just get in touch, because we are definitely open to all sorts of ideas for what could go into those blogs. Quick run through of our committee updates then, just to keep everyone kind of on the top of what's going on. So our Living Collections Committee, which deals with all things animal, are currently updating quite a lot of our documents. So the institutional collection planning guidance is their primary one that they're working on at the moment, but they will also then move on to looking at the ethical acquisitions guidance and the close contact guidance. And our records working group is still working quite a lot on Brexit work, and in particular animal transfer issues, of which there are still many. Our Field Conservation Committee has just launched a brand new conservation policy, and I will chuck links to these into the chat in a little bit as well. Our Research Committee is undergoing a full restructure at the moment, so it now has 2 co-chairs leading it at the top, and they are just looking at things like our research liaisons, who help to try and make sure that our husbandry guidance is all evidence-based. Those are being revamped currently, so there will be some changes coming there, and also a bit more focus on kind of social science representation in that committee as well. Conservation Education Committee is, of course, doing this conference right here, right now, with the regional meetings coming up tomorrow. So that's been a big focus for the committee. They have just appointed a new Southwest region coordinator. So that's Joe Clark from Paynton. So welcome, Joe, if you're in the audience here. And of course, there's been a lot of focus for this committee now on recovery from the pandemic and also collaboration. So those are the kind of things that we'll be talking about shortly and in your regional meetings tomorrow. Mission Enabling Committee is having a bit of a shake-up, so there's some more changes to come here, but the Comms Working Group has obviously been very active through the pandemic and has a new chair, which is Gareth from Chester Zoo. There is a brand new Public Affairs Working Group, which is just about a year old now, so that's obviously reflecting our kind of ongoing focus on public affairs. And our Sustainability Group has just published a new sustainability policy as well, which is very relevant with COP26 having just happened. Membership and Licensing Committee, so this is the one that deals with any applications, reviews inspection reports from zoo licensing, and also deals with any complaints and any whistleblowing issues. So they're reviewing that policy at the moment, and they're hoping to make it much clearer. We know that sometimes people get a little bit confused if they do have some concerns about how and who they should report those to. So we'll hopefully have a much more transparent whistleblowing and complaints policy available to you all shortly. They're also looking at their terms of reference ahead of hopefully in the next year or so, bringing in some new members to that committee. So that's quite an exciting committee to be involved in, and obviously if anyone is interested in that, then kind of keep an eye on our website, because we will post those vacancies as they come up there. And our Finance and Resources Committee, our beloved Mike Bird, who has been our treasurer for 17 years, steps down, and Tom Owens from Chester Zoo is our new treasurer on our board of trustees and running that Finance and Resources Committee, which is the one that manages the budgets and all of the exciting things like that we don't often talk to you about, but it's very, very important to what we do. In terms of looking forward, so this is the kind of interesting bit. Obviously, a huge priority for BIAZA is our new strategy. Originally, this was going to happen pre-pandemic, but hasn't for obvious reasons. But we are back on it. Joe has already been talking to our council about this. So very shortly, we'll be coming out to the committees to start talking about their individual work plans, which will set out their priorities for the coming years. So that's very exciting, and it means this is a really good time to be getting all of your input into what you would like to see the Conservation Education Committee and BIAZA more widely focusing on for the next couple of years. Now is the time to feed that in, and where possible, we will get it into those work plans. Accreditation is hopefully being picked up as part of that new strategy. It's not fully confirmed exactly what's happening yet, but it's obviously something that we feel is very important. So we will be looking back at that one once more. And I know various people contributed to that process pre-pandemic, so kind of good to let everyone know that that's back on the table, and we will be talking more about that soon. There is an awful lot of public affairs and kind of legislation issues that are focuses right now. So the standards, David mentioned already that the standards have been reviewed, and they will be out for public, well, not quite public consultation, but stakeholder consultation. So that will include all zoos and aquariums imminently, and that is literally imminently. It could be any day now. They're just waiting, DEFRA is just waiting for final sign off from the Cabinet Office to be able to share those and get that consultation started. We know that there are some big changes in those standards, and as David made reference to, there is a new conservation standard, and actually included alongside that is education and research standards. So they will be very relevant to all of you, and it's very exciting to see education and conservation being given more focus within the standards. So we will be sending out communications about those standards once they are ready for consultation. Elephants will be a big focus this year, so it's not one that really impacts that often on our Conservation Education Committee and our educators, but the Elephant Welfare Group, which was established by BIAZA and then mandated actually by the UK government to carry out various bits of research and reporting, submitted their final 10-year report to DEFRA and the Minister Zach Goldsmith earlier this year, and so the response from government is expected in the kind of early to mid part of next year. So that will be a big part of our work for when that happens. And the legislation going on, so the Kept Animals Bill, some of you might have come across that one. We've been doing a lot of work about it. We have talked about it quite a bit because it includes two key things for our sector: the ban on primates as pets, and also this moving of part of the standards from the primary legislation to more under the control of the relevant minister. And that's how this kind of work on the conservation standards has been happening. That is actually at what's called the committee stage of a bill going through Westminster government at the moment, and it is being debated by the committee literally right now. So I've got lots of messages going on in the background as the oral evidence sessions and the just debate of those by the committee is happening in the background. So we'll be coming out with some updates through the bite-sized newsletter as to how that debate has gone to our members probably tomorrow. And the Animal Sentience Bill will come along pretty soon after the Kept Animals Bill moves on to the House of Lords. So that's another bill that will have some impact on our sector. So another one that we'll be working on. Brexit has not gone away. It's definitely still a problem. Animal transfers in particular are the big problem there. And a bit of a plea, if you are having any Brexit impacts in your collection, please do let us know about them in the office, because we are recording it and we are talking to DEFRA on a pretty much monthly basis about those issues and trying to resolve them where possible. So do keep telling us and reporting to us any challenges that Brexit is throwing up to you. And of course, COVID will continue to be a priority. It hasn't quite gone away. As was mentioned yesterday, there is some increasing restrictions coming into play in Ireland, so we are keeping a close watch on the situation there. But also, as is happening in this conference, it's an important point for us to take stock of all the changes that have occurred, to learn lessons, and to really build up our resilience for future impacts of, hopefully not pandemics, but other things that might impact on the sector going forwards. A flag for the website. Hopefully everyone knows where it is. In the top corner there, you will see something that says member login. Every single one of you, if you work for a BIAZA member, should be able to log into our website and get access to all of these things. So conference presentations or links to where they're held when we have lovely people like RZSS hosting beautiful websites for us. Lots of husbandry resources, all of the handbooks that go alongside the conservation education guidelines, for example, all of that is on the members area of our website. So if you do not have the ability to log into it, please let us know in the office, or speak to your line manager first, who should have the website, the password for you. And if they don't, do come and talk to us in the office so we can make that work for you. And really, my final thing is just a plea to get involved. As I said, BIAZA is everyone. There's some really exciting things happening in terms of looking forward to the new strategy, and in terms of looking at the standards and how we respond to the standards. So it's a good point to be getting involved with the BIAZA community. So please do use the website. Come to the conferences as you are doing today. Make use of your local education regional meetings, so your regional coordinators do report back in to the wider committee, and things that you raise in those meetings do get actioned on, kind of do make their way further up the chain, and it does help us to decide what to prioritize in terms of where our education activities are headed. There is an education Facebook group. If you are not already on it, we will chuck the link in the chat. Do get involved in that, post your stories, ask questions on there, discuss with the wider BIAZA education community. There is the option for you to post news and events on the website, either directly as your collection, or you can send them to us in the office so that we can share them and kind of amplify your successes. Send us your ideas for projects and for communication, so your ideas for blogs. But if there's things that you would like to see a BIAZA collaboration on, then do get in touch. Hopefully we're going to be talking about collaborations in regional meetings, and we do have a member that's come forward wanting to do some sustainability education collaboration work. So if you've got ideas for things like that, do come and talk to us. And enter the awards. I think they're open for applications now. If they're not, they will be shortly. Obviously, we have our education category, and there's been some brilliant projects already spoken about in this conference. And I should think that if they haven't already been submitted, all of them should be. And tell us how we can help you. What more can we do? What else can we do to support you? What other resources would you like? What other forums for discussion would you like to see? So just a couple of final requests. So sustainability is a big thing for us at the moment. The new Facebook group it was literally set up just before COP26. It's been very active. So if you are interested in sustainability, do go and join that. The team there are looking for education resources. So if you have any that you're able to share, please either post them into that group or send them to the office. Where the team are looking to pull together lots and lots of sustainability resources, including education ones, to make available across the membership. And as I mentioned, we have had a member come forward looking to set up a BIAZA-wide sustainable education project, particularly looking at setting up kind of youth networks and supporting young people in schools to set up their own community sustainability projects. So if anyone is interested in that, please come and talk to me, so we can kind of gauge interest and kind of direct people together and facilitate conversations. And that is the presentation.